Hello guys, this is your friend Naruto Dark Verse and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Was Born with Aizen's Power and Genius Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now start the fanfic. Was nighttime within the hidden village Konoha as miles away from a traumatic event was happening within the forest. Within a clearing was a boy by the age of 13 with sun-kissed blonde hair and whisker-like marks on his cheeks as he was dressed in an orange jumpsuit along with a pair of green goggles around his forehead, carrying a large scroll on his back, looked despairingly at his once trusted teacher, a man with whitish-gray hair under his bandana as he was wearing the standard Konoha Chunin uniform with two huge shurikens attached to his back just told him a disheartening secret. That's right Naruto. You are the Kyuubi that attacked our home 13 years ago. And now the time has come for you to die, yelled the man, known as Mizuki, as he threw one of his shuriken towards Naruto, using his frozen shock to strike him down, but unknown to them another man, who wore the same outfit as Mizuki only with the standard headband as well, dark brown hair tied in a ponytail along with a scar across his face and nose, named Iruka, who was also the blonde sensei, watched on. Seeing his assistant turned traitor's weapon moving speeding towards his student, he launched himself to protect the Jinchuriki from the incoming projectile only to trip and fall over. Naruto! He screamed as he watched in horror as the bladed weapon sliced off one of his arms as blood gushed from the gash as the Uzumaki screamed. My arm! Naruto cried out in agony as he tried to stop the flow of blood from what remained of his arm, but there was too much blood gushing from the wound as Mizuki laughed at his pain. What's the matter, oh great Kyuubi? Mizuki mocked while laughing as seeing the demon brat in pain. Don't worry, I know how to make it all better, he added with a cruel grin as he grabbed his second shuriken only instead of reeling his arm back to throw it, he jumped towards the ground and began walking toward the heavily bleeding Naruto, only for Iruka to block his path. I'm not going to let you near him, Mizuki, Iruka stated with a kunai in hand as he stares down his fellow Chunin trying to protect Naruto by standing between them. Oh, get real Iruka. That fox has had this coming for the longest time, now get out of my way, Mizuki screamed, trying to hit Iruka with his shuriken as the scar-faced instructor tried to dodge only to be faked out as the traitor used the opening to deliver a swift kick directing into his side, resulting in him getting knocked out of the way as the white-haired instructor resumed making his way toward Naruto, who was still bleeding out. It won't stop. The blood won't stop, Naruto cried as he was completely panicking now before looking with wide eyes as he noticed Mizuki in front of him. Before he knows it, Mizuki used his shuriken to cut off his other arm and causing him to scream once more while Mizuki, growing tired of the noise from the brat, stabbed him dead center in his chest to silence him as the academy dead last fell to the ground, coughing out as he was covered with his own blood while hearing Iruka called out his name as he begins attacking Mizuki. While all that is happening, Naruto, quickly feeling his consciousness fading away, began wondering if this was really the end of him. Is this it? Is this how my life ends even before I could even become Hokage? This can't be it. I want to live. I would give anything to live, he cried mentally as he doesn't want to die before suddenly hearing a feminine voice within his head. Would you give up your humanity? The voice questioned, causing his fading blue eyes to dart around trying to find the source of the voice only to hear the continuing sound of the two academy teachers fighting. Who's there? He asked, not knowing what to make of this as the voice continued. The ones who could save your life, and all you need is to give up your humanity and you shall live. This time a second feminine voice replied as Naruto wasn't sure if he liked the sound of this or not before asking. If I do that, then what I will become? He questioned, wondering what would happen to him if he gave up his humanity. You will become what everyone always thought you were, a demon, a very powerful one at that. The second voice replied as the whiskered blonde widens his eyes. Then how do I get people to respect me if I become that? The reply shook Naruto to his very core since his treatment by the villagers had now made sense, but how would becoming the very thing they accused him of being will get them to acknowledge him? You know deep down, they will never respect you since it's better to be feared than respected. After all, they already think of you a demon, why would they ever let you become their leader? Now choose because your time is short. The first voice argued as well, making a solid point to the Jinchuriki as he began thinking about his crap pile of a life as tears of emotional pain wailed within his eyes. So unable to do anything else, Naruto gave in. Fine, take it. Take my humanity so I can show them what a real demon can do. He yelled furiously as tears and blood leaked from his eyes as the voice laughed lightly, glad to see the boy finally sees the truth about humankind. Very well, let this day be known as the day of your rebirth as a demon. The two voices exclaimed as they proceed to transform the Uzumaki into the very being the idiot humans labeled him as. // During the battle that Iruka and Mizuki were engaged in, a dark light began to surround Naruto's body as he slowly began getting up while the blood from his wounds began to strangely flow into the air before his eyes snapped open, revealing them to now be completely white. RRRWWWRRR. He then releases a demonic roar that could have possibly been heard for miles as the sound had grabbed both Chunon's attention. Upon seeing the demon brat up again, Mizuki began to panic, thinking that the Kyuubi had awakened its power. While figuring that he needed to finish the job quickly, he kicked Iruka out of the way before dashing towards Naruto. "Die Kyuubi brat!" he exclaimed while reaching for his shuriken, preparing to strike the Jinchuriki down again, only in his haste. The white-hair instructor failed to notice Naruto's blood gathering where his arms once were as they quickly began forming a vague facsimile of the lost appendages as Mizuki was moments away from stabbing his head with his trusted shuriken, only it wouldn't come to be because as the traitor went to complete his self-imposed mission, he was stopped short as he coughed up blood. Wah! He thought before looking down, and what he soon saw terrified him to his core as a dark-skinned arm covered in bright red veins that ended in a claw-like hand with nails that resembled blades was embedded right within his torso as his eyes followed said arm to see that it was attached to none other than Naruto as his eyes had returned to their normal blue. Only the pupils were slit like a cat, or a fox, before the Uzumaki smiled a twisted smile as his eyes were now filled with bloodlust. "Hello there Mizuki, and now goodbye," Naruto said with a cruel mocking tone and a twisted smile as he uses his other claw-bladed hand to slice Mizuki into pieces as blood spilled everywhere as the dark light faded from around him. Snapping out from seeing his former assistant literally torn to shreds, Iruka's worry for Naruto resurfaced. Naruto, are you okay?" he asked as Naruto turned to him with a smile while his eyes were no longer filled with bloodlust. "Yeah, Naruto started to say only to scream while holding his head as he felt something inside him telling him to kill. Unable to resist the call, Naruto's body began to move of its own as his new claws were raised and posed to strike his friend and teacher. "Naruto, what are you doing?" Iruka asked while noticing his student trying to stop himself as he came swiping and slashing at him. I don't know. But I can't stop. I can't stop this feeling. I have to kill." Naruto exclaimed as he was no longer in control since he was unable to fight this new demonic instinct. Iruka knew he could have continued to easily dodge the attacks, but he knew what Naruto needed, so he'd have to do just that. "It's alright Naruto, I understand. But promise me one thing," Iruka said with a smile on his face as the student he saw as a little brother looked at him with scared teary eyes. "Promise me that you won't change too much," he said as his stopped moving, allowing one of the blonde's clawed hands to strike deeply into his chest before swiping upward, tearing his body in half while his blood splattered over him. All Naruto could think was how he didn't want this at all as tears fell down his face as he stared at Iruka's bloody remains while his final words rang inside his head. "Iruka-sensei," he cried out into the uncaring sky as the blood of his sensei was now forever stained upon his hands as rain soon began to pour over the forest. I promise Iruka-sensei. I promise I won't change, he whispered to himself as his eyes darkened as he began wandering aimlessly through the forest, completely forgetting that he still had the forbidden scroll strapped to his back. Meanwhile, deep within a cave, two figures stood watching had saw the whole ordeal happening through a large crystal the size of a dining table. So sister, when do you think he'll be ready? The first figure said as she was the first voice Naruto heard. Only time will tell, dear sister, only time will tell. The second figure said, revealing herself to be the second voice as they turned their attention towards a large carving on the cave wall. 6 years later, a 19-year-old teen was squaring off against a group of large tigers that could only be found within the forest of death, as the young man was treating this like some kind of training or exercise, as he was wearing nothing but a pair of torn black Anbu-style pants, as he was huge, standing 6 feet 5 inches in height, as his body was packed with toned muscles that was also littered with some scars of past battles with the other creatures living here. Come on, you overgrown house cats. Is that really the best you guys can do? Quote. The teen exclaimed, hardly breaking a sweat as he dodged another beast that was trying to get the jump on him from behind. Don't tell me you guys are done for the day? Questioned the man, wiping away a strand of his messy blonde mane as a much bigger tiger confronted him while baring its fangs, causing him to smirk as his hands transformed into 5-bladed claws. Taking a confident stance, he said, "Bring it on, Ms. Kitty." He taunted, spurring the alpha tiger to strike at him. Meanwhile, at the Hokage Tower within her office, Tsunade was looking through the paperwork with the now retired third Hokage sitting across from her. So tell me, sensei, what brings you here today? She asked her former teacher, who gave her the position as he couldn't hold up the title of Hokage anymore. Not since that night so many years ago when the Forbidden Scroll was stolen, and they've found 2 academy instructors dead. Tsunade Senju, aka the 5th Hokage for last 6 years now, was a woman in her 50s but only appears young thanks to her genjutsu, as she has blonde hair tied in twin ponytails and honey brown eyes with a small violet diamond mark on her forehead, as well a very full curvy figure. She was wearing a gray kimono-style blouse with no sleeves that held her enormous J-cup, blue pants that has hugged her thick hips, and plump as well the standard shinobi sandals. I'm here because I have been hearing a rumor of late, about the Forest of Death, said an elderly man named Hiruzen Sarutobi, also known as the third Hokage, as his former student heaved a sigh. Know what this was about? Yes, about the forest, sensei. Tsunade started, having read some past reports about the location. There have been some reports about markings on the trees, even on stones around the area, which seems to be from some strange-looking claw marks. It's disturbing that there is something more dangerous living out there than the animal, she said while skimming through some of the reports on the incident. I see. Do you have a team looking through it? Hiruzen asked her, as this was very serious since they have no clue on what kind of creature has taken up residence in their own backyard. Yes, though a small one. She replied, having seen some of their best shinobis into the forest her grandfather had created. Back within the Forest of Death, a small group of Junin appeared in a part of the forest and found what they had expected, an area that was full of corpses of animals, not just any animals either, but the most dangerous ones, as well as claw marks on every available surface. Just like those times before, said one of the Junin to another. Yeah, like with the killer plants. Oh, don't get me started on the huge bugs, replied the other. But the question still remains, just what are we dealing with? Asked the last Junin as he and the other looked towards the deepest part of the Forest of Death. Within the deeper parts of the forest, the man was walking around the forest as he knew that there were people to kill in the area, and he's trying to compose himself as he began chanting his mantra. I can't lose control, I mustn't lose control, he repeated to himself as his hand kept trying transform. Why do I have this bloodlust? He questioned while trying to get further away. I need to get away or else I'll succumb to it. he exclaimed, kneeling by a riverbed as he stared at his reflection as his blue eyes glowed demonically while the whisker marks on his face shifted before he pushed himself back up and kept going until he finally arrived at his home. Aizen was an old base that was once used by a certain Sanin that was abandoned many years ago. I'm home now. Naruto Uzumaki is home. He enters the place he had made his home, revealing himself to be Naruto Uzumaki, once human and now a demon, as he had fought his bloodlust that he had gained that night 6 years ago. Once he entered, his body quickly began twitching violently as he slammed himself against the wall. Damn it! Naruto cursed as he slid down onto the floor as he grabbed one of his hands as his fingers began flexing into claws. Killing those tigers wasn't enough. Killing anything here no longer satisfies the bloodlust. He groaned while he tried, thinking there must be a way before he completely loses himself and kills everyone in the village as he sat back up, thinking of a way not to fall into his bloodlust. I guess I have no other choice but kill a few humans, he said in defeat, knowing he was out of ideas. Going over to his closet, the Uzumaki dug through the items he had gathered for the past 6 years ever since he became a demon before grabbing what he needed as he put on a hood cloak before heading out towards the village to satisfy his bloodlust. It was nighttime at Konoha's park, as many things could happen here during the night and no one would be the wiser, as a woman with long purple hair wearing a long-sleeved kimono was being terrorized as she was harassed by 3 drunken Chunin-level ninja. Look what we have here, boys, she's one of those damn Hyuga women. One of them called, pointing towards her pale white eyes, as the identified Hyuga winced from the stench of alcohol permeated from the men. Yeah, she sure is, another exclaimed as he takes a deep swig from the bottle in his hand. I say we have our way with her since our oh so faithful wives left us. Spat the third, with his friends liking the idea since they can take their frustration out on the woman while also putting her on her place, since the Hyuga clan think they're so much better than everyone. The Hyuga woman was scared as she was Hitomi Hyuga, and she was just walking through the park because she doesn't want to be around her husband right now, and sadly just thinking about said husband led to her getting distracted as the drunken Chunins used that opening to attack on her. Kami, please save me and curse my husband as well. She mentally prayed while also cursing her husband, who happens to be one Hiyashi Hyuga, clan head and leader of the Hyuga, as these drunkards were prepared to start raping her. What they didn't know that Naruto was up in a tree watching as he was wearing his gear consisting of black vest unzipped showing of his muscular build and abs, combat pants, gloves, and boots that allows him to be one with the shadows as he considered what he should do while fighting the bloodlust that had kicked up again, only it was stronger this time. I don't know what I should do. The demonized blonde thought as he was trying to make a decision as his hands slowly transformed into claws as a memory of something flashed through his mind, and not having the time to analyze it, he jumped down and readied his claws as one of the drunken Chunin tried to grab Hitomi before jabbing his hand into his back, causing him stop upon seeing the blood-covered claw sticking out of his chest stopped him cold as the hood-wearing demon pulled his arm as the Chunin dropped dead from the blood that was filling the first drunken his lungs. Seeing the death of their friend caught the other 2 intoxicated shinobi attention. What are you? The second Chunin asked the hooded figure as he peed himself. Sensing the fear rolling off of him caused an amused grin to appear upon Naruto's face. I'm a demon, and you are dead, he declared as he swung his left claw at the second drunken Chunin, who stood there gasping for a few seconds until he turned to his remaining comrade before literally falling into pieces, leaving only the lone Chunin scared shitless as he decided to run. Praying to Kami to help him, only he didn't get far as the concealed demon to quickly chase him easily as the Uzumaki slashed the guy's legs off as the drunken Chunin fell as he began crawling with all his might but still couldn't get away as he could see was the hooded figure to lunge towards him as he could only scream as he felt the cloaked creature's hand stabbed him in the back as he began stabbing him repeatedly until the Chunin's screaming died down. Hitomi Hyuga was privy to a front row seat of this carnage. Kami, what have you sent? She breathes wispily as she slowly approaches her savior, who kept stabbing the corpse, until he finally stopped as he was now breathing hard. He felt the bloodlust recede some. Feeling his bloodlust receding, Naruto looked down at his hands as they slowly changed back to normal. Man, that felt good. And the bloodlust is gone for now, but for how long, though? He thought as he started walking away, glancing at Hitomi to make sure she was okay, before continuing to head back to the forest. Wait. Hitomi called, trying to stop him as the man stopped and looked at her. See, can you take me with you? Hitomi asked her hooded savior as this experience made her scared and that she doesn't want to head back to the clan compound if something like this happens again. Hearing her asking to go with him, the demonized blonde gave her a confused look. Why? Why do you want me to take you away? Don't you have family or something? He calmly asked, wondering why she would want to with him. I do, but my husband is not the same as he once was, as he was once a kind and caring man. The Hyuga matriarch started before continuing. But all of that soon changed when our daughters were born, as he practically abuses our middle child as if she has the plague itself, since she takes after me in kindness. But sadly, in a clan that must be strong and cold, my daughter is sweet and bright as I can't stand by and allow him to continue as he has, since he won't even get rid of the caged bird seal. She explained while clenching her hands into fist at the thought of her daughter's suffering. His head to the side, Naruto asked what she meant. What is the caged bird seal? As soon as he said that, it caused the perplet to shudder, since the sounds of his growling voice was affecting her in a way she hadn't experienced in a long time since her youngest was born. Quickly getting control of her repressed urges, the mother answered him. It is what separates our house, as those with this accursed seal are servants to those without it, she explained while squirming around, since this man's voice had a serious effect on her. The hooded figure then glanced towards her hand as he motioned to the ring on her finger. If you wish to come with me, leave that ring behind, he stated, and without a moment of hesitation, Hitomi removed her ring and dropped it where she stood as he grabbed the Hyuga mother into his arms, causing her to blush as she felt his strong arms around her body, and spirited her away back towards the forest of death. Upon arriving home with Hitomi by his side, the pair walked inside while the Hyuga matriarch was thinking about her 3 daughters and if they're worrying how her disappearance would affect them. So deep in thought, she hadn't noticed that Naruto had removed his hood until after he started speaking. If you're going to stay here, you're not allowed go out without me, as it's dangerous to go alone, he said, getting her attention as the perplet finally got a good look at her savior's face and immediately recognized him. Wait, you're Naruto, she exclaimed, remembering the picture by her middle child's bedside table, since he was all that girl could think about most days. Naruto was slightly surprised that she knew his name. I'm surprised at someone like you know who I am, seeing that you are from the Hyuga clan, he replied, since from what he could remember was that the Hyuga clan were so uptight they don't even bother to remember the names of those they see as beneath them. Well, not everyone would paint the Hokage faces after all. She recalled that event with a gentle amused smile, since vandalizing a village monument in broad daylight wasn't very forgettable. The whiskered Uzumaki began scratching the side of his head, trying to recall that event. Right, I did that. He trailed off as he was struggling to remember before deciding to drop it. Anyway, I should warn you that there will be times that I seem off, he said, getting the woman to look at him confused as he walked into the other room. Hitomi began to consider her new life with a man who seemed much better than her husband, as she also started looking around her possible new home, since the place wasn't huge, as she wondered where she'd sleep or bathe. After a while, Naruto returned to the room wearing only his pants when she turned her gaze on him, as she could see how well built the younger man was, not overly muscular like a bodybuilder, but still athletic as a blush slowly built upon her face while her eyes grazed upon his body. Oh Kami, just look how well built he is, I think I might sleep with him, but I don't know if he likes older women, she thought while rubbing her thighs under her kimono as she kept looking at him as she was debating on if she should sleep with him or not. Naruto then noticed her long stare. Is something the matter? You're looking at me like you want to tell me something, he asked, raising an eyebrow as he was confused by the older woman's behavior. Snapping out of her thoughts, the Hyuga tried to give him a reply. Well, I was thinking that I would. Stuttering, she began thinking of a way to get him in the mood as an idea popped into her head as she quickly moved behind him. Give you a massage, she quickly stated as her hands beginning to work his shoulders while gliding her chest against his back. Grunting softly, the blonde stopped her by gently removing her hands. As good as this feels, I'd like to lay down and you can continue in my room if you'd like, Naruto said, feeling a little tired as Hitomi's quick compliance seemed a little off to him as they both went to the bedroom where the perplet resumes massaging his shoulders. As Hitomi massaged Naruto's shoulders, she felt the muscles that belonged there. If his body was like this, then what is he like down there? Maybe I could take a quick peek, she mused before shaking her head, since thinking such things made her feel hot under the collar. Cammy, I really want to find out, but the question is how? She mentally questioned as an idea came to her mind as she stopped her ministrations for a bit, which confused Naruto, as she quickly undid her kimono, causing her massive and still perky double K cup size to bounce as she wasn't wearing a bra before grabbing hold of them, as she then places her milky jugs against his back as she began rolling them up and down. Naruto, to say the least, was surprised at her actions as he looked at her confusedly. What are you doing? He started asking but was quickly silenced when she pulled him into a heated kiss. After a few more hours of amazing, Naruto and Hitomi were cuddling against each other on the mattress as the latter moved closer to the former as her trailed kisses and love bites around her neck. You belong to me, Hito-chan, now and forever, he huskily growled, wrapping his arms around her, bringing her closer while rubbing his semi-hard between her thighs. That's right, Naru-kun, for I belong to you and only you, the extremely busty perplet cooed as she rubbed herself against his length as it rised back to full mass as she placed a hand on her swollen stomach while gently rubbing it. I can't wait to carry your baby, Naru-kun, you come so much better and last weight longer than my ex-husband, she giggled as she was hoping she was impregnated by her younger, better lover. With a feral grin, Naruto shifted them so he was on top of her while she lay on her back. Then how about we continue and see if I can knock you up with more than one baby, Hito-chan, what do you say to the thought of twins or triplets, he huskily said, rubbing his rod against her while cupping one of her tits, causing her arousal to return as he drank more of her milk before they both got started again. After several more hours of rough lovemaking, Naruto was redressed in his gear, going through the forest of Konoha in order to find food for his new mate Hitomi to eat since he her into unconsciousness. Man, do I feel better, as it has been a whole day and not once had my bloodlust spike, he said to himself with a grin, since he hasn't felt the urge to kill until he saw a person lying unconscious on the forest floor. Whose could that be? He questioned out loud, feeling that there was something wrong, and while he knew he shouldn't get involved, his curiosity got the better of him. Going up to the person, he turned them onto their back so he could see their face and was surprised at who he found. Naruto was hunting in the area surrounding his territory to bring food to his new mate Hitomi when he came across an unusual sight of a figure collapsed in the distance as he approached them, and to his demonic eyes, it looked like a woman with long raven black hair, as she was wearing a bedroom robe that hid most of her body as she seemed to move as if greatly hurt, causing him to wonder what happened to this unfortunate woman. What could have done this to such a beautiful creature? He wondered out loud, but he'd have to worry about that later, because for now he'd have to get her somewhere safe, and the safest place within this forest happens to be his home, as it wasn't too far even with her apparent injuries, as he picked her up and whisked her away toward home. Naruto arrived with the woman in his arms as he quickly opened the door and noticed Hitomi, who was still their earlier intimacy but was also wet. Looks like my cow MILF decided to clean up while I was gone, he thought with a grin as he noticed the clean scent of her, meaning that she had been in the shower. Once the extremely busty Perplet noticed that her new lover had returned, she began to smile until she noticed the robed figure in his arms. Makoto. Naruto, what happened? She exclaimed with worry in her voice as she saw how beaten and bruised her fellow clan matriarch was. I don't know, I found her like this so I brought her here since this is the safest place I could go. Naruto explained as he placed the now identified Makoto onto the bed. Well, that's true since everyone in the village thinks that you're dead. The Hyuga woman recalled with a closed hand against her mouth as she trying desperately to figure out how to help her friend. I guess I could go find someone who can help her, but who would listen to me? Naruto mumbled, still deep in thought, trying to think of who could possibly help, but his head was still very cloudy. But then it hit him as he remembered that there was a nurse who actually helped him after he was attacked by a mob, as her name was Unohana Retsu, since she saw him for himself and not as a demon. Nurse Retsu, he exclaimed with a snap of his fingers. Hearing the blonde exclamation caused Hitomi to look at him questioningly. Who? She asked, wondering who he was talking about. There was this nurse named Unohana Retsu, as she looked after me when I was little and still human whenever I got hurt. The Uzumaki explained while trying to sort through his foggy memories of that time. Hitomi nodded her head slightly as she now sees where he was going with this. Well, if she can help, then look for her, Naruto, while I look after Makoto here until you return, okay? Ask her for help, please. She asked while begging Takami to help her friend remain until help arrives. Naruto nodded back towards his mate with a determined look on his face. Once I do, I'm going to resume looking for food for you, well, for you and Makoto. He said as he readied himself to leave to find the nurse as well some food for the two women. As soon as the blonde demon left, Hitomi looked towards the sleeping Makoto. Oh Miko-chan, just who could have done this to you? She said worriedly as she sat next to the Ravenet, wondering what had happened to her. Somewhere in Konoha, Naruto was leaping from one building to the next without anyone spotting him as he stopped briefly on one building in order to look around, trying to remember which way he needed to go before he spotted a certain team that, in another life, he would have been on, as he saw a boy the same age as him but with raven black hair. His hairstyle looked like a curtain bird's behind as he was wearing a gray sleeveless shirt with white arm warmers and shorts as he was carrying a sword on his back, as this boy used to be one of Naruto's classmates from 9 years ago. Isn't that Sasuke? He doesn't look that much different from back then, he speculated, thinking of how weak looking his former classmate was. Naruto then spotted someone wasn't familiar with, even if he does have amnesia, as he saw another boy with pale white skin with short blackish brown hair, as he was wearing a shirt with a long sleeve on one side and a short one on the other, as the shirt was also short since everyone could see his stomach, as he also carried a sword on his shoulder as well. That weird smile, he smiled as he walked. Who is that guy, and why do I have the sudden urge to kill him? He said to himself as he could feel his bloodlust rising upon the sight of the unknown male. Then he turned his attention to the only female of the team, as she's a girl with long bubblegum pink hair with bangs covering her large forehead and green eyes, as she's wearing a red kipao dress with a white hemlines in a circle and dark green skin-tight pants. Sakura Haruno, the demonic blonde, growled as he instantly recognized his former classmate and ex-crush, as it seemed the past 9 years didn't affect her growth at all, as she looked exactly the same as before. Only taller, as flashes of memories of the years spent in her company, from her punching him for everything he'd do when they were little kids, even when he tried to be nice her, as his hands began to change into claws as the blades dug into the roof he was on, leaving a mark before taking breaths as he tried to calm himself. Don't lose yourself over a sad little girl who couldn't get the guy that she likes to love her, he whispered as his claws returned to normal as he calmed himself down. I need to find Unohana, as I think she should be working at the hospital right about now, he reminded himself, since he needed to find the nurse ASAP as he leapt away from the team below. What he didn't know was that he turned to leave, a man wearing a uniform all Jonin wore with a mask covering the bottom half of his face and a headband that covered his left eye and gravity-defying silver-gray hair put the book he was reading down as he was looking at a distant rooftop that Naruto was on not too long ago. What was that feeling? Whatever it wasn't human. He thought, having felt the sudden spike of killer intent as the girl hollered at him. Kakashi-sensei, will you hurry it up? We have a mission to report to. Sakura yelled, getting the Jonin's attention since they had a mission to report to after all, as he was several hours late, again. Naruto crouched on the outside wall on westernmost part of the hospital as he tried to find an open window to get inside, as he finally found one on the 5th floor, as he counted himself lucky since the room he entered was empty, before quickly moving towards the door as he peeked out, checking to see if the coast is clear before he spotted two women coming down the corridor, as recognized the first woman as Tsunade of the Sannin, while the other woman was in her late 20s as she had long brown hair and black eyes, as she wore a dark blue kimono style blouse like the Senju's except without the sleeves, as it was held with a light blue belt, which was doing the best it could, holding in her enormous bust, and dark blue pants that also copied the Hokage's style, as he also noticed that both of them had a strange diamond-shaped mark on their foreheads. Sayuri, look, I know that you're old enough to look after yourself, but still, I can't help but worry. There is something going on in Konoha. Tsunade said, looking at her companion as she was concerned about her safety. Like those 3 dead Chunins that were found this morning? The now identified Sayuri asked, getting the Sannin to nod. Yes, as we've found claws marks similar to those found in the Forest of Death. We also found that they each had high amounts of alcohol in their system, as I think whatever it had stopped them from doing something stupid. Whatever it is, I just want you to be safe. The busty blonde stated, since whatever was living within the forest had now found its way into the village. Sayuri nodded, understanding the older woman's concern. I understand, Mom, as I also think they did plan to do something, but don't worry, as I'll still live at the compound with you. She said, giving her revealed mother a hug, as never the wiser to Naruto, unintentionally eavesdropping on their conversation as well, watching as their enormous melons mesh against each other. That's good to hear, because I just don't know what I'd do if I lost you or Shizune. Tsunade said, causing her daughter to giggle as they separated. Well, most likely you would tear down the whole village if something were to happen to us. She said with a smile, causing her mother to grumble, since that does sound like something she'd do, as both Senju women continued on their way with their voices fading, letting blissful silence fall once again. Seeing that the coast was now clear, Naruto exited the room, hoping he could find Unohana quickly, since he didn't want to be here for too long, as he began moving quietly down the halls before stopping on the 1st floor before opening it to peer inside, as he'd found her, looking as he remembered. Unohana Retsu is a youthful-looking woman with long black hair tied into a braid placed in front of her body and blue eyes, as she was dressed in a standard white nurse uniform that hugged her slender figure very well, as her ample E-cup and supple bounced with almost every step. Damn, I never realized how she is, he thought perversely. Even though the nurse wasn't as endowed like Hitomi or the Senju women, her appearance still managed to stir his little demon from its slumber, as he tried to figure out a way to bring her back to his home. However, he didn't need, once as luck would have it, she was moving for the door. I'm heading out. Unohana called out as she waved goodbye to her friends and coworkers. Watching the nurse leave, Naruto sighed as he banged his head against the wall. So I break into the hospital, only to find out that she's leaving. He groaned as he moved to follow her outside. Unohana had soon arrived at her small apartment where she lived alone, as she had placed her things on a small table as she made her way to the kitchen since she needed some tea. Nothing like some tea after a busy day, she said with exhaustion in her voice as she busied herself in the kitchen before feeling a soft breeze swept through the room. Where did that breeze come from? She questioned, looking around confused since she never left the window open when she had a shift at the hospital. Nurse Retsu, Naruto asked, standing behind her as the brunette released a cute yelp in fright as he had just scared the soul out of her. Quickly regaining her bearing, Hana grabbed a knife and points it toward the hooded demon. Who are you? How did you get in here? She demanded, since her intimidation skills were pretty rusty since her retirement from the shinobi force. Naruto, seeing the woman startled, raised his hands while opening his palms to show he was unarmed. I am not here to hurt you because I need your help, please. He begged, hoping his hood masked his voice well enough as he continued. There's someone in my home and she's hurt, as there are certain reasons I couldn't go to the hospital. So will you help her? He asked, since his earlier visit to the building had brought back some unpleasant memories that he'd wished were still forgotten. Hana gave him a calculating look as she weighs her options. If he's telling the truth, then someone must really need my help. But if he's lying, then I might be killed, or worse. She quickly thought, since during her time as a kunoichi she had made a lot of enemies, as well seen a lot of her sisters in arms killed themselves from what happened to them during their captivity behind enemies' lines, though a part of her wanted to trust this stranger, as odd as that was, but seeing as she had no other choice, she agreed. Fine, I'll help. But be warned, if this is a trick, I'll punt your balls so hard you'll have to open your mouth just to take a leak. She threatens as she flared some killer intent towards the hooded man before her. Naruto sighed, wondering why all women threatened the genitals first. Well, I'll allow you to keep that knife as a sign of good faith if it makes you feel better. He said, leading her toward the window he used to get in as she climbed onto his back before rushing back towards the forest of death. It was nearly sundown when they arrived at his house. As they both he moved to the door. Looking around the area, Hana couldn't but wondered, why would someone want to live here? She thought, finding it concerning that anyone would want to live in an area where death was literally part of its name. As Naruto opened the door and walked in, the black-haired nurse finally saw why she was brought out here to begin with. Lady Hitomi. Lady Makoto. The slender woman exclaimed upon seeing Hitomi, who looked fine, and a hurt unconscious Makoto as she turned towards the man who brought her here. I get it now. I bet you really kidnapped both of them. She accused, glaring heatedly at him, since over half of Konoha knew about the disappearance of Hitomi Hyuga and she's guessing that he just kidnapped Makoto. I'm afraid you're mistaken there, because he didn't kidnap me. In fact, he saved me from nearly getting raped by 3 chunins, as well found Makoto like this and brought her here where she could be safe. Hitomi calmly stated, with an eye twitch, since she had accused her savior and lover of kidnapping her. Are you sure? The brunette nurse asked, glancing towards the Hyuga matriarch while the busty perplet nodded. But what about your husband, Lady Hitomi? She asked as she saw her face quickly turn sour at the mention of her soon-to-be ex. That's why I asked him to take me away. Hitomi flatly stated, as Hana wondered why, but she decided not to ask about it as she goes over to the Uchiha matriarch. After getting checked out, Makoto slowly awoke during that time and saw where she was. Where am I? She weakly, as her vision began to clear as she saw Hitomi, Nurse Retsu, and a feral-looking Minato double before turning her attention towards a window as she figured out exactly where she was. I see, we're somewhere deep in the forest of death. She said, grunting as she slowly sat herself up. Hitomi looked at her friend as she asked the big question that had been on her mind. Makoto, tell us, what happened to you? Why were you in the forest by yourself? She asked as everyone in the room was quite interested. Taking a deep breath, the Ravenette began telling her tale. Flashback. Makoto's P.O.V. I've arrived home that night after getting something to spice up the night with my husband, since I had bought some new lingerie, and after I went to take a shower to freshen up before Fugaku came to bed. After getting ready and putting on my new underwear, as it was quite the red number of a bra and panties that barely covered my nipples, and as I also put on a pair of black high heels and waited in the master bedroom as of wait there for over 2 hours since he still hadn't come home yet. So, With me frustrated from waiting, I put on my robe and went looking for him since I was sick and tired of him ignoring my needs. Figuring he was still in a clan meeting, I headed toward the meeting room downstairs in our house. Only once I've arrived there, I heard their hushed voices as they were whispering intently as it had gotten my curious, so I cracked the door to hear just what they were saying. Everything is almost in place, just as planned. I heard one of our Jonin clansmen say as of noticed that all of our clansmen from Genin to Chunin to Jonin and even the police force were in the room. Good. Within a couple of days, we will take over Konoha with no one to stop us. I heard another person say as I was shocked to see that it was my husband, as I soon realized what the meeting was about, as it was the coup d'etat plan that he'd been talking about for months. However, before I could even sneak away, I was struck from behind as my entire world went dark. Flashback over. Normal POV. / And then I woke up here. Makoto finished as the two women gasped. I don't believe it. The Uchiha are planning a coup d'etat. But why? Why do this? Hana asked, wanting to know what could bring an entire clan to turn against their own village, as Hitomi wondered the same thing. Because almost everyone in my clan feels that everyone in Konoha doesn't trust us, or at least that's what I felt. Makoto solemnly stated as she had heard whispers from the other villagers as she noticed the hooded Naruto standing against the wall. Are you the one who saved me? She asked as he nodded. Then can I see the face of my savior? She asked, wanting to at least see the face of the man who saved her. The demonic Uzumaki crossed his arms as he thought about it. Okay. Only if you and Nurse Retsu can keep a secret, as this doesn't leave the forest or this room, he said in a serious tone, since he wants his identity to remain mysterious. Both black-haired women looked at each other as they soon agreed. To our graves, they both said together as Naruto reached up and removed his hood, as both of them are shocked to see who he was. Naruto, is that you? Hana gasped again as she couldn't believe that the boy that she used to look after in the hospital whenever he got hurt was in fact still alive. Makoto was left speechless as she saw the son of her best friend standing right before her very eyes. What happened to Naruto and why were we lied to? She thought as checked him over, noticing the nurse doing the same. And he's grown into such a handsome man. She mentally added, while her fellow brunette having similar thought as both their faces gain healthy blushes. Naruto then raised a hand, getting both of their attention. I know you have a lot of questions about me, but for now, Makoto. He started turning his attention towards the Uchiha matriarch. Tell me who's all involved with the coup d'etat. He asked as he already had a plan forming for how to stop this. Even though he held no love for the village, there were still people who he wanted to protect. How can you stop them? You're just one against who knows how many Uchiha. Hana questioned with concern, since he'd be greatly outnumbered before Hitomi interjected. I think you should have a bit more faith in Naruto, for he's not what he seems to be. The Hyuga MILF stated as she remembers the clause that her young lover had used to save her from her would-be rapists. Well, if you say so, Hitomi. Makoto said, slightly unsure as she told Naruto what she knew as well, where he needs to go, including the meeting place that every Uchiha used. / Late at night, Naruto arrived at the Uchiha district as he silently slipped into the meeting room, where he could see a good clip of the Uchiha clan were already here, having just arrived as he heard the details of this coup, while their leader, Fugaku, came up in front as he figured it was time for a speech. Everyone, the time is almost upon us for when we take Konoha for the good of our clan. The clan head announced as he had more planned, but the hooded blonde had heard enough. Revealing himself from the shadows, the members of the coup were surprised as Naruto stood behind Fugaku. Yeah, about that, your plan to backstab the village isn't going to happen. He stated as he quickly moved to the center of the room with every present Uchiha armed to the teeth. Because not a single one of you are even going to survive tonight. He declared as one of the Uchiha behind him slowly moved into position to kill him as he began preparing his sword to strike him down with his Sharingan activated. The would-be assassin was shocked when a single finger removed his eye, shocking everyone as he fell while Naruto lowered his arm where they all could see that his hands transformed into claws while his skin turned black with red veins. Who's next? The Uzumaki taunted as all of them except Fugaku attacked him as he just smirked as he blocked and countered their attacks as he swiped and slashed taking about 5 of them as the clan of Sharingan wielders pressed on with their assault. Slash slash slash. After a few moments of butchering, the room that was once clean had quickly becomes covered more blood and severed bodies that covered up most of the claw marks on both the floor and the walls. Naruto, grinning at the body count he'd racked up, changed his hands back to normal as he began making hand signs, signs that weren't familiar to those remaining. Fire style. Forbidden black dragon flames. He called as he breathed in quickly before releasing a torrent of black flames as everyone hit by it was burned into a crisp leaving nothing but ash and a deep scorch mark as the fire burned everyone and everything around them as their agonizing screaming quickly died as soon as they're released until only Fugaku remained. Now it's just you and me, he said with a feral snarl as his hands turned back into claws ready to slice more body parts. The Uchiha head backed away in fear before realizing something. That jutsu you used, it was one of the forbidden jutsus from the missing scroll of forbidden seals, isn't it? He demanded only to get no answer from the approaching demon. You have it, don't you? He accused glaring at the monster that destroyed his army using power that rightfully belongs to his clan. Seeing the power-hungry look in the soon-to-be dead man's eyes, Naruto decided to have a little fun with him. Yes, I once had it, but I destroyed it after learning all its secrets. He lied, causing Fugaku to become enraged about that. You bastard. How could you do such a thing? That power should have been mine. The man yelled while thinking of a way to catch the hooded man and grill everything he knew about the scroll out of him as he brought out a kunai as well activating his clan's bloodline. No matter, since once I kill you, I will get all I need from your body. He declared as he charged at the killer of his men with the intent of killing him as Naruto waits for him to get closer until. Shink. He counter-kicked Fugaku off guard and jabbed his clawed hand into his side getting the Uchiha head to look down only to see the bladed appendage before kicking him away as the clan's patriarch grabbed his side hoping to stop the bleeding. What the hell, are you? He demanded as he was bleeding very heavily from the attack he'd never seen before. Naruto came up to him and put his clawed hand at his neck and says, simple really. He said, lifting Fugaku up so that they were eye to eye. I'm a demon born out of hatred for this very village. He stated as his voice took a demonic tone while his slit eyes glowed aggressively. If you kill me now, you will be the enemy of the mighty Uchiha and we will never rest until you are dead. Fugaku declared as blood and spit left his lips as he was losing blood faster from his sudden lift up. Listening to his opponent's last words, Naruto gave him a mocking chuckle. Yeah, not when your wife, or should I say ex-wife, is in charge. He stated as he brought his other hand up and decapitated the wounded man before he could even question about what he meant. The next morning in her office, Tsunade sat filling out the reports over what happened last night as well other things. So Fugaku, along with a few other Uchiha members, were planning a rebellion. All because they weren't satisfied of what you had given them, right mom? Sayuri asked as she helped out her mother with the paperwork. Tsunade nodded as she answered her daughter's questions, yes, but good thing there was list of names or else I might have put some innocent people in prison, she said with a small smile since the list of names meant less paperwork for her to fill out. What about the guy's wife, Makoto? What about her? The Senju heiress asked wondering why the wife of the clan head wasn't being arrested. Well, she said she had no idea about the rebellion as well as finding out that her husband was killed, by what exactly since we still don't know. The busty blonde said since whatever attacked the Uchiha last night had left behind serious carnage that she hadn't seen since the Third Shinobi War. Mom, I think this is getting serious. The younger Senju said with a serious look on her face, getting her mother to look up from the paperwork. Whatever this thing is, I don't know if it's good thing or bad, she added, since she had mixed emotions about the killings that been happening these last few days since this creature been killing people in the forest, but now here it is making its mark in their very own village. Tsunade sighed since her daughter raised a very strong point. I know, but for now let leave the few survivors mourn their dead kin. She instructed, seeing as the few remaining Uchihas have just lost a majority of their family, as she switched though other reports. Mom, I think whatever did this may also be the same creature that lives in the forest of death, since the claw marks on the trees matched the others found throughout the village. I think that who or whatever did this might be trying to get rid of the corruption of this village. Sayuri explained to her mother, who nodded in thought, since so far the three Chunins were possibly going to harm someone while the Uchihas were about to start a civil war. /// Meanwhile, back in the master bedroom of the Uchiha compound, Makoto was on her knees, still wearing the same lingerie that she was planning to show her now deceased husband, but now she had a new man in her life, as she was currently kneeling down in front of Naruto, as she was doing her best to suck his 13-inch onto him with a belly full of hot potent seed. 2 weeks had passed since Naruto stopped the coup d'état, and things around Konoha become somewhat uneasy now. With so many deaths going on, as the village was unable found out of who or what has been doing the killing, and they still don't know what this demon that lives in the forest of death looks like, and because of it parents are telling their children about this demon and what it will do toward those who are bad, and they will be taken by the demon's claws that are his hand with blades as his fingers, while the ninjas are looking for this thing and bring it to justice, if only if it was that easy. /// At this moment, Tsunade is trying to figure this entire situation out, but it's giving her a massive headache as she groaned from the migraine. Just what can we do, and if we don't done with this soon? We might have to get help from outside of Konoha, but there's one good thing coming out of all of this, since only the corrupt are targets as well, those who attacked Naruto when he was alive, she said, looking to her daughter, who gave her a calculating look as an idea formed in her head. Then why don't we? Sayuri said, getting her mother's attention as she began explaining. It's time that we do, Mom, and with the upcoming Chunin exams it might be the great opportunity to do so. She stated as Tsunade's sensei Sarutobi voiced his agreement. Young Sayuri is right, Tsunade. Everyone had tried their best to find this demon, and yet none of them have found it. The retired Hokage reasoned as a woman who's holding a pig and dressed in a long bluish-black kimono with white trimmings stepped forward. They are right, Lady Tsunade. Maybe one of their teams could found it while ours failed to do so. The woman named Shizune added, causing her mentor to sigh, since they do have very good points. You've all made very strong points, and I will get right to it then. Tsunade said as she sits at her desk, as she began making requests for a helping hand from the other villages about this demon as well a reward. /// It was night time as Naruto, who's at this training grounds with his hood on, as he takes a look around, seeing that it hasn't been used for a very long time, as he takes out a wanted poster that was made early today, as it was given to him by Ikumi, as he just laughs looking at it. Well, this was unexpected. He started seeing an image of a demonic figure with claws as his hands, which caused him to growl in annoyance. Great, now I have become some kind of legend that people tell their children stories about me. He growled as he crumpled up the paper and throws it away, as he thinking of what he should do next, as he remembers that he now has food and clothes for Hitomi to wear after he visited Ikumi's friend Mito, who owns a food stand, and he was able to get some food from her after she gave him a big hug and thanked him for helping her friend. So what should a demon do next? He thought as he lays down and watched the stars, as he thinking about things of what happened to him so far. A lot of things has happened. He mentally mused, but couldn't go any further into his thoughts, as a group of 20 Anbu with blank masks appeared around him, causing him to growl in irritation as he gets up halfway. Just great, he growls as he hears one of them drawing their weapon. We're here to capture you and bring you to our master, the Anbu said with a monotone voice, as the blonde demon noticed the kanji of root on their masks. And why should I? Naruto questioned as he gets on his legs as the rest of the Anbu drew their weapons. You don't have much of a choice. The first Anbu stated as all of them charged at him to show they're willing to use force on the orders of their master. Seeing the approaching group of blank-masked shinobi and kunoichi caused the demonic Uzumaki to just sigh about it since he knows where this was heading. Can't a demon just enjoy his night without ignorant humans rushing to their deaths? He said to himself since he just can't seem to catch a break as his hands shifted into his claws as he charged to kill them all. Play Everywhere I Go by ONLAP. The fight begins with 5 of them changing toward, but Naruto doesn't do anything as he allows their swords to stab him as they wondered why he would allow himself to be stabbed like this. I finally know why I can't get an answer. I finally know why I feel like a number. They keep a secret into their minds. They never talk, even telling lies. Then they see silver chains launching out of his body with hooks on each edge stabbing into 5 roots right through their heads as blood spills out of them. Then the chains pins them on nearby trees and leaving the dead bodies there. Make me feel, hey, at least like a monster. Make me feel, hey, at least like fire. It seems I can't find a place to go. There's a wall of things I'll never know. Why would I escape? Seeing the chains, Naruto looked at them with mild surprise since this was clearly new. Now that was something, he said as he concentrated on his chains as they come back to him as the remaining 15 roots were thinking of a way to bypass the chains while the blonde was thinking about his newest ability. When did I get these chains? No matter, I will worry about it later, he thought since he have some people to take care of as he readied his claws for both defense and offense as he starts thinking of how take down all of them as the chains wrapped around his arms to his wrist as he's ready to tear them apart piece by piece. 'Cause everywhere I go, ho. There's nowhere I belong, ho. Can anyone just tell me what I'll find? 'Cause everywhere I go, ho. I'm always on my own, ho. Can anyone just catch me before I drown? Can anybody make me feel like I'm not a stranger tonight? As the fight goes on for the rest of the night until there are only Naruto and 4 remaining as he's looking at the dead ones that he had killed before he charged towards one of the roots and used the chains to wrap themselves onto him, but he dodged it but wasn't able to dodge the slash with his claws but only to cuts off the shinobi's arm as it falls onto the ground. End song. Just give it up already since you guys have no chance of beating me. The blonde demon stated as the chains wrapped themselves around his arms as the one-arm Anbu starts feeling something, and that is fear as he tries to run away, but the hooded Uzumaki wouldn't let him, so he used the chains once again and this time catch the one-armed shinobi by his neck. I warned you, he demonically growled as he brings in closer the one-arm root and with his claw slices off his head and let it fall to the ground as he looks at the remaining 3 as he thinks of what he should do with them as he walks up to them as the chains catch them and hold them up. Now then, what should I do to you 3? He wondered, and then it come to him as he goes over to the trees and brings out his claws and starts crafting the trees into something as it didn't take long as 2 X crosses were thrown in the air and lands in central of the grounding trains. I think I just found out of what I'm going to do with you, he said with a sadistic tone as the remaining roots shivered in fear as they saw the gleam in his eyes. Don't be afraid since one of you 3 will become my massager. He added as the hooked ends of the chains change into spearheads and launch them into the chest of 2 of them near where the heart is, and they couldn't scream or anything as he looks at the last remaining Anbu, and looks like you're it, he simply said as he moves closer with his claw holding them up. // Meanwhile, in the Hokage office, Tsunade was looking through of the letters she had made for requesting help from other villages, and now all is there left is to make copies and send them. There, all finished, and now tea, she started to say before a Jonin barged in. Lady Tsunade, look outside your window. The Jonin yelled with urgency in their voice as the busty Senju does so as she see 2 X crosses in front of the tower as this had happened behind her back. Damn it all, she yelled out in fury as she runs outside as she hopes they not more dead bodies to be buried. // Outside the tower, Everyone around the two X crosses are in horror of what they seeing with their eyes as some are keep the youths away from it until Tsunade pushed them aside. Move. Get out of the way. I need to get there. She commanded as she's making her way through until she gets and sees something that would make her very glad that she no longer has the fear of blood because she sees two Anbu bleeding out of their chests as their hands and feet are nailed right into the wood as she gasped in horror since seeing such a thing is something truly evil. This, she started with a stutter not finding the proper words before turning towards the Jonins behind her. What are you waiting for? Get them down and pray to Kami that they're still alive. She orders as the Jonins brought them down as a few villagers were talking among themselves as they wonder what this could mean as the female Hokage then looks down and sees a living Anbu wearing a mask with the symbol with root and that they had a note as she takes it and read it as she was now pissed since these Anbu are Danzo's root agents which were supposed to have been disbanded decades ago. Anbu. She called and 6 Anbu appeared. Take them down and get the living one to Ibiki as I want answers, now. She commanded as they nodded and carries out their mission. In one of the rooms of the T&I department, a man wearing a black coat with his face is covering in scars as he is Ibiki and he's looking at the root Anbu with an intense glare. Alright you piece of shit, tell me what you know or else. He demanded slamming his hands against the table as the root already gives in as they tells of what happened as well telling that their now dead team had faced the demon from the forest of death with tears falling down from their eyes and that Danzo has been using root to capture the demon for a weapon as well as still kidnaps children from their homes. Ibiki blinked a little dumbfounded since he wasn't expecting this to be too easy but it doesn't matter he needs to inform Tsunade about what he'd been told. After dealing with those Anbu as well sending his message to the Hokage, Naruto returns home as he goes to take a shower and once he finished, he gets into his bed and starts to sleep for a bit while Hitomi, dressed in some cow-printed lingerie, sees him passed out from exhaustion. Sleep well Naruto-kun, since you can always breed me tomorrow, she whispered into his ear as she crawled next to her demon stud of a lover and pulls a blanket over them as she cuddles close to him as she too began sleeping. The next night at a training ground, a woman in her late 20s with long brown hair styled in a ponytail and red fang tattoos on each of her cheeks as she wearing her Jonin vest and gray shorts that shows off her legs, but who is she and why is she here at night? Well she's Hana Inuzuka and there's a reason for it since the women of the Inuzuka clan goes through a heat cycle given their deep animal connections with dogs but each of them go through it at different times at least once a year, but why is she going through this particular training ground? That is because there's a waterfall near it and she's going there in order to avoid men as well to relieve herself as she is blushing badly as her breathing was increasing along with the heat inside of her body. I'm almost there and good thing that no one knows that I go here during my cycle, Hannah said to herself through pants as she almost thankful that no one had seen or followed her as she continued on her path to the waterfall. Once she'd arrived at the waterfall with a little lake, she unzips her vest releasing her firm and supple double G cup bounce a little followed by her shirt. Showing that she wasn't wearing a bra, which makes her bounce more leaving only her shorts on as she removes them and her panties as well as she lays down near the edge as she spread her legs and slowly moves her hand down from her neck to her. Then to her toned flat stomach, and finally her soak and needy as she begins rubbing it lightly as she starts moaning with a light blush on her as she uses the water as a mirror so she could see what she's doing as she began pushing her fingers into her as she moans more while relieving herself. What she doesn't know was that her pheromones were sending out an invitation to her soon-to-be mate. Naruto just appeared at the training ground after a good rest, as well some fun with Hitomi, as he tries to remember his childhood but all he's getting are foggy memories. Why are all of my memories so foggy? Did my transformation have something to do with it? He thought but then he smells something pleasant in the air as he wonders what it is as it was also waking up his manhood as he follows the smell as it getting stronger, as well making him harder, by each step he takes until the scent trail led him to the waterfall where Hannah is and upon seeing her, he quickly hides in the trees as he thinking what is a woman doing here for and why was there a very pleasant scent coming from her. I really wish I could find the right mate since all those others are very submissive, Hannah moaned out loud thinking that she's alone as she fingered herself while groping one of her own tits. I want a real man, an alpha who'd put me in my place and make me his bitch, she added as her animal instincts kicked in as she's fingering herself even more. Seeing and hearing this woman caused Naruto to clench his head as a memory began to play within his mind. Flashback. Naruto's P.O.V. / Class at the academy had ended for the day and parents were here to pick up their kids while I was sitting on the swing with a sad and jealous look on my face as I watched the other students getting hugged and praised by their families while some of them sent heated glares and hated sneers my way until I noticed someone coming over towards me as this person is an older girl before she stopped in front of me. Once she was close, I noticed that she has brown hair and those red fang tattoos on her face like my classmates Kiba and Anuki has meaning that she'd from the same clan as them. Hey, what are you doing here all by yourself? She asked as she's looking at me. Since this wasn't the first time someone pretended to be nice to me in order to hurt me, I reacted defensively. Why should you care? I asked with a defensive sneer as I looked away from her so I didn't see the sudden surprised look on her face. Well, my little sister told me that you need a friend, she said, surprising me as I slowly look at her while slightly leering since this could still be a trick. Who told you that? I asked, still keeping my guard up though I was bit curious since I'm not the most liked person in the academy by both teachers and students alike. She smiles gently which caused me to feel my face heat up a little since I've learned how to read the emotions of people and I can tell that her smile is genuine. My little sister Anuki told me since she is a good little sister unlike my brother Kiba. Oh, where are my manners? My name is Hana Inuzuka. What is your name? She asked after introducing herself which surprised me that she's the older sister of my classmates. Getting over my surprise I looked at her and introduced myself. My name is Naruto Uzumaki, nice to meet you Hana-chan. I said with a smile at finally having my first real friend besides the ramen stand owner and his daughter that I never noticed the slight blush on Hana's face. Flashback over. Normal P.O.V. / Hana, is that really you? Naruto whispered to himself as he looks at her then slowly approached her before leaping out of the tree. Hana, he exclaimed with his hood on as he caught the Inuzuka by complete surprise as well during orgasm so she couldn't think right because of the heat is it messing with her thoughts as well mind. Glancing towards the infirm of her, two different thoughts ran through Hana's mind. Who is that, and why does it feels like I know him? The more rational human part of her thought. Finally. A real man who could really me silly as well dominate me. While the more primal part of her brain howled in excitement since the man in front of her has the aura, appearance, and, judging by the tent in his pants, of an alpha which caused her body to heat up and released more pheromones as she got up on her leg while covering herself. Why you seem familiar somehow but I feel that I have met you before. She stated with a slight stutter as she's looking at his body as the slight of it is making her more wet than before but she needs to control herself. Of course you know me, we've met at the Ninja Academy where I was sitting on the swing. Naruto said as he took off his hood which left her shocked seeing that her friend is alive and right in front of her. Naruto. The Inuzuka yelled as she pounced and hugged him and gives him a kiss which shocks him as she can't control herself at the moment but then stops herself with what little control she has as she realized that she was completely as she quickly got off of him. I'm sorry, it's just that I'm in heat, she stuttered out with a huge embarrassed blush on her face as she noticed the confused look on his face. It's something women from my clan go through as we succumb to lust as well wanting to find a mate. She explained though she couldn't help but steal glances at the blonde stud before her as her body was screaming for release. Let me guess, you have to find a mate don't you? Naruto asked as she nodded as he took a whiff of the pheromones coming off of her which caused him to slighting growl as his member twitched within his pants. Yeah I do, but all the guys I meet are weak and submissive or are very pushy when it comes to her. They don't like the smell of dogs. Hannah explained since she broke up with her last boyfriend in both feeling and physical pain since she slapped her ex for being a complete bastard to the dogs in her clinic. Feeling the clear lust the Inuzuka has towards him, as well the discomfort within his pants, Naruto voiced a suggestion that it benefits both of them. Well, I can give you a choice because I like dogs and I am pretty strong and not submissive. How about you mate with me or you have to deal with this heat on your own? He said, catching the brunette by surprise as her eyes widen while her blush deepens as she began moaning as she felt his fingers pushing into her. I really like you, Hannah, as you are nice, gentle, kind, caring and a very lovely woman on both the inside and outside. So you pick between me becoming your mate, or you can continue to be stuck in your heat. He explained, giving her options as he fingered her for a few moments before removing them from her folds. Whimpering at the lost feeling of his fingers, Hannah bowed her head so he wouldn't see the burning blush on her face. I want you to be my mate, she whispered in a soft tone of voice as he couldn't hear her. Sorry, what was that? I couldn't hear what you said. Naruto asked as he moves in closer as the Inuzuka couldn't take it anymore as she charged and jumps onto him, knocking them both into the lake as she completely given into her lust from her heat cycle as she stares at him with a primal lustful gleam in her eyes. I said I want you to be my mate and me right now. Hannah howled, releasing more pheromones as the blonde Uzumaki gave into his own lust as he pushed her off and tore his own soaked clothes off, leaving him as his fully hard 13-inch to smack her in the face, which made her even more horny. // From there the two began making out wildly as Naruto grabs her toned bubbly, giving them a firm squeeze, causing her to moan while she humped herself against his alpha as they stopped kissing each other as he gave her a wild grin. We're going to have so much fun, aren't we, Hannah-chan? He huskily growled, sending shivers of pleasure up her spine as he grabs her, which makes her moan louder. // Less than 3 minutes, both Naruto and Hannah are doing the standing 69 position with latter sucking on the former's, which to her is the biggest that she'd ever seen, as she blushed furiously as she sucked downward on his while using one of her hands to stroke what couldn't fit in her mouth as her grinded against his abs as she couldn't believe just how wet she's getting. Just look how wet you are. You must have wanted very bad, didn't you? Naruto said with a lusty growl, keeping a firm strong grip on her and thighs as the older woman doesn't answer as she's too busy sucking his thick poles with her mouth as he starts licking her soaking warm honeypot, which makes her moans louder around his staff. Feeling the blonde's tongue digging into her folds caused the Inuzuka to increase her sucking. Oh, he's licking me there so good, and I'm in love with this of his. It's so long, so huge, and so thick, she thought as her mind was clouded with the primal desire to breed and reproduce as shivers went up her spine from just thinking of having this monster-sized manhood deep inside of her as she starts sucking and stoking his faster than ever. As both Naruto and Hannah kept at it for a while until they both finally come as he unleashed his huge load into her mouth, which was too much for her to take while her juices gushed out and covers his face as she tries to drinks his cum but couldn't as she takes his out from her mouth as the rest of his cum sprays out, covering her face, hair, and part of her chest as she's enjoying the warmth of his cum as he gently drops her into the shallow edge of the lake where the rest of his release mixed with the water to catch her breath, but that isn't happening as he'd already puts her into the missionary position and slams his deep into her, causing her to scream. Oh sweet Cammy, you're so huge, she howled out in lust as she feels his deep inside of her as the size of it caused her to experience another orgasm. What a tight you have, bitch. Can't wait to claim. It is mine and mine alone, Naruto huskily growls, turning her on even more as he starts thrusting into her like an animal in heat since her pheromones drove him crazy as he pushed more of his into her, causing her to scream and howl like a literal bitch as his dominating thrusts caused her to bounce and sway wildly as he lifts her up and starts kissing her again as he's thrusting his into her even more as he's going deeper into her until finally making his way toward her womb. Feeling the tip of his spear jabbed against the entrance of her baby oven was causing her mind to go crazy as she wants more. He's so amazing, it's like he's not even human, she thought as she continues kissing him back as she wrapped her arms and legs around his shoulders and waist, grinding against his muscular body as she feels his going deeper into her, feeling her insides getting reshaped by the very hardness and thickness of his manhood. Once they stopped kissing, the whiskered Uzumaki grabbed hold of the Inuzuka's hips and with one hard thrust pierced into her womb, causing her to scream and howl with all her might as she experienced another orgasm before getting more by him as he caught one of her and starts sucking onto as it, making her howl even louder as her inner walls got tighter around his as he starts roughly spanking her bubbly hard, making it jiggle. Hannah's screams and howls became louder as the combination of her mate sucking her, spanking her, and thrusting into her as well the inside of her womb was making her even more crazy with lust since she was very close to losing her mind. Oh Cammy, this is too much, but I loving it so much, she howled as the younger man continues thrusting his as well, spanking her while sucking her. Then Naruto suddenly lets go of her as starts trailing love bites around her neck and collarbone. What a horny you become. And yours getting even tighter as makes me want to do this, he growls as he stops spanking her and used both hands to grab her hips and with one powerful thrust jammed all 13 inches of his deep into her as the tip end hits against the wall of her womb, which made her howl even louder as she experienced another hard orgasm. So now feeling her alpha thrusting harder than before as his dominates her womb as well, his full heavy balls smacking against her thighs was the final straw for the Inuzuka. You're massive as hitting my womb, she howled out lustfully as her human mind was destroyed, leaving nothing by her primal canine-like instincts as the juices from her last orgasm continues flowing out of her and onto his and balls from each thrust he continues to makes. This kept going until Naruto felt his balls tightening as he knows that he's about to come next as he pulled his latest lover by her ponytail. I'm going to come, tell me how badly do you want it? He growls with a domineering tone as he continues thrusting his even faster and harder into her. I want it so much. Please give me your cum and forever claim me as your bitch, Hannah howled out as she wants her alpha's cum so very badly. Just what I want to hear, the demonic blonde growled as he continues thrusting until finally reaching his peak. Here, take my load you horny bitch, he exclaimed with a snarl as he fires another one of his massive loads and this time right into her womb, flooding her greatly as the older woman howls the loudest as she'd ever howled. Yes, breed me my alpha, breed your horny bitch with your pups, the Inuzuka howled out as she getting filled up with her alpha mate's cum as she could practically feel herself being impregnated as her belly started to swell from the large amounts of hot potent seed being pumped into her. After a few moments, Hannah's gets over flooded with Naruto's cum that their mixed fluids mixed in with the water they were in as the Uzumaki removes himself from her, causing more of his cum to flow out as her eyes are rolling upward as she was heavily panting while covered in sweat before moving a few feet into the lake so that now both of them are in the water but sticking to the shallow end. He positioned her on all fours into a doggy position as the demon of Konoha positioned himself behind her, rubbing his still raging hard in between her bubbly butt cheeks as she looked back at him with a begging look on her face. Please hurry, I miss your inside of me Naruto-kun, she whimpered in a begging tone as she wanted to be by Alpha and his enormous again. Seeing her beg so submissively, Naruto smirked as he rubs the tip of his rod against her stuffed entrance. Oh, don't worry, I'm going to give it as well, make you feel so good, he assured as his hands rubbed up her legs and hips as he gently pushed his tip into her, making her moan, but he quickly moves it upward and pushed himself into her, which caused her to yip in surprise as she quickly turned towards him with a nervous and scared look on her face. Wait. N not there. Anywhere B, Hannah pleaded, but it was already too late as her mate thrusts his deep into her, which makes her stop talking and start howling as she felt him taking her only cherry that was never popped. Naruto meanwhile found her extremely tight as it was much tighter than her. Damn, what an, he grunted as he continues to push his inside her back door until he was completely inside of her as he starts thrusting, making her scream and Howl louder than ever before as the sounds of their primal lovemaking was heard throughout the small area as he continues thrusting his even more harder than before as his large sperm-filled balls smack against her thighs while her big bubbly jiggles upon each hit as he grabs her by her ponytail and pulls her upwards as roughly grabs her and squeezes them as he dominates her body as well-trailed love bites around her neck and collarbone since their mating was just getting started. After 12 hours of non-stop, Hannah now bears her mate's mark on her neck as her stomach looks so swollen that she looks like that she was pregnant with twins or triplets as she was once again dominated in the doggy position as Naruto was her so hard that she'd completely lost herself to her lust as she's howling the loudest she'd ever had. You know what? I just remember something. Do you know Kiba? He asked as he cupped her while continuing his domineering lovemaking with his latest woman. Why yes. He's my pathetic runt of a little brother, she barked with a snarl at the end since she doesn't even want to think about that runt as the only things on her mind were the feeling of her alphas deep inside of her as well the desire to mother his pups. As the demonic blonde continues his thrusting, his mind was soon plagued with memories of his childhood. I see. He snarled as he starts spanking her which makes her howl even louder as he started dominating her even harder and rougher than before until he once again comes deep into her and filling her womb up with more boiling baby batter causing her belly to swell again as she experienced the most intense orgasm of her life as she passed out causing him to smirk as he knows what to do next as he carried her back to his home in the forest of death where he'll continue their lovemaking along with Hitomi. Over 2 days have passed and at the household of the Inuzuka clan, the matriarch of the clan was walking back and forth because she's worried beyond belief and that's because her eldest child Hannah who hasn't returned home. The woman has wild brown hair with red fang tattoos on her cheeks and she's wearing her Jonin uniform though it's hugging her figure very well even though she's in her late 40s but she still looks to be in her 20s because she takes good care of herself as well as her body since she has a very massive and firm I-cup bust as well and toned robust figure as she's Sume Inuzuka. Watching his mother as she's worried about his oldest sister Hannah who wasn't come back was a boy who has turned 19 not that long ago as he's wearing a black jacket and pants as well the same red fang tattoos on his cheek as he's Kiba Inuzuka, the third and youngest child of Sume, as he looks at his worried sick mother. I'm sure Hannah is okay, maybe she's with her boyfriend or something, he reassured with a look of mock concern on his face. Which I hope she ran away with. He mentally added because deep down he doesn't want his oldest sister to come back since she always picks on him for just about everything there is. Sume stopped her pacing as she snapped at her son with a harsh look. That's bullshit and you know it Kiba. You and I both know that Hannah's love life isn't that great. She stated as she knows that her eldest daughter had dated a few guys but those guys were too weak in submission for her since the women of her clan wants to be dominated by someone stronger than them, someone who'll put them in their places as their bitches due to the clan deep animal connections with dogs and other types of canines. Why yeah, you have a point there. Kiba said with a stutter sweating from under his mother's glare since there was only one other explanation. Then that would mean the demon might have gotten to her and killed her. He said as his words don't even ease the mother's worries at all since it only made them worse. If that were the case then we must start the search then. The Inuzuka matriarch exclaimed since 2 days have already passed meaning that the chances of even finding her daughter dead or alive were quickly sliming. I don't know why we should bother after all since I'm the heir to the clan after all, the younger Genin stated as he doesn't even care about what happened to his sister. Sume snarled as she once again glared at her son. Okay first of all, you're not the heir Kiba, Hannah is since she's older than you and more responsible than you'll ever be, she harshly stated which caused Kiba to get a little anger about that. What? But if she becomes the leader of the clan then she won't stop at nothing to continue putting my name to shame. He argued as he worries more about his future than his own sister. Oh don't be such a whelp Kiba. A female voice called stopping their argument from going any further as they turned their attention to see another girl coming from the hallway. And besides, you do that on your own. She added with a snicker as she's the same age as Kiba but she's wearing similar clothes that Hana wears, only without the Jonin vest, as she has wild brown hair like Sum but bit longer with a small side ponytail on the left side of her head and just like the others she too has red fang tattoos on her cheeks as she's Anuki, Kiba's older twin sister by 3 minutes as well Sum's second and youngest daughter. Anuki leave him be, we have to find Hana. Sum stated leaving the room as Anuki glanced towards her younger twin. Come on you lazy idiot, we have to find big sis. She exclaimed causing Kiba to grumble at her insultingly as she kicks him in the balls making him scream like a little girl as all three of them with the youngest walking behind them in pain as they get out of the house to look for Hana, but not before the matriarch left the clan a note telling them that they went looking for their heiress. Arriving at the training ground where Hana's scent was last noted, Sum, Anuki and Kiba began looking for any clues as they start smelling around the area. While looking around, Anuki starts thinking as she smells a very familiar scent that she never thought she would smell again. This scent, it's something I haven't smelled in a very long time, but that's impossible since this belongs to someone who is supposed to be dead, she thought as she moves away from her mother and brother following the scent until she was far away enough as someone grabs her from behind while covering her mouth as she vanishes into the shadows. Neither Kiba nor Sum noticed that Anuki is gone as they made their way towards the lake and waterfall since that's where Hana's scent led them. I smell Hana's scent along with someone else's scent. But this scent is of someone that I haven't smelled it in a long time since this scent smells like the little boy I used to see around Konoha. Sum said as she starts getting angry as well started growling since the reason why is because she blames herself for not being able to help Naruto out when he was alive like she could have on that night 6 years ago since he was also the last thing that reminded her of her old friend. Kiba slowly backs away from his mother as he knows why she's upset. She must be thinking about that dead last again, I will never understand why she cares about him. He thought with a groan as he doesn't notice someone approaching behind him since the Inuzuka matriarch was distracted as she keeps on thinking about Naruto without realizing of what is happening behind them as he unknowing gets knocked out and taken away. Finally getting her thoughts back in order, the mother was about to ask her son something but when she turns around, she saw that he wasn't there at all. Kiba, she called out but got no answer as it caused her to irritatedly growl. Damn that boy, he must have run off without me knowing. She growls angrily as she's thinking of what she should do with her youngest when she gets her hands on him as she never noticed a figure quickly appearing behind her. Go to the forest of death. The figure whispered surprising her as quickly turns to see that there's no one here and wonders who was that as she's thinking about of what the voice said. The forest of death. But that's where the demon lives. Wait. Don't tell me that. Upon realizing it, she runs toward the forest of death in a rush and hoping that she's not too late. Sum arrived at the forest of death but she has to stop herself as she started thinking about where she's even going. Damn it. I don't know where to look in this damn forest. She yelled out as she began looking around and noticed claw marks on the trees. Noticing that these are freshly made claw marks, the figure from before quickly appeared behind her again. Follow the claw marks that are on the trees until you see a base. The figure instructed before quickly disappearing. As the feral-looking woman isn't sure about this but what choice does she have as she follows the trees with claw marks on them until finally reaching a very old and beaten up base as she didn't know that this base even existed in this forest as she walks up to the door and opens it as she takes a look inside and sees the place was bigger on the inside than on the outside as she quickly found the door with her kids sent behind it when she opened the door and was shocked by what she saw. In front of her was her son Kiba who's all chained up as he trying to break free but has no luck of doing so before noticing Anuki who's looking after a sleeping Hana who was completely as well having a big satisfied smile on her face like she had the best ever or something. Hana. Sum yelled as she runs up to her daughters while completely forgetting about Kiba as she's checking on her eldest as she sees a mark on her neck as well a very swollen belly that makes her look like she's heavily pregnant with twins or maybe triplets. Why is Hana and smiling like that? She questioned as her youngest daughter shrugged her shoulders, not knowing the answer either. Hey, can you unchain me already? Kiba yelled out angrily because his mother forget about him being all chained up. Before anyone else could say or do anything, the figure appeared in the doorway. Yeah, that's kind of my doing since Hana needed to rest when I found her during her heat cycle, and well, let's just say that she desperately needed much relief since she wanted it very badly, but may have gone overboard since I think I've knocked her up with the pups she begged me to breed her with. The figure said as he shows himself from the shadows with his new hood on. Who are you? Sum demanded as she's getting very angry at the man for raping and impregnating her daughter. Staring at the female clan head with his eyes glowing in the shadows of his hood, he answered her. Oh, that's very simple really, since after all, Kiba should who I am for sure since Inuki here already knows who I am. Naruto simply said as he removes his hood to show his face. Kiba's face becomes one of complete as he saw his familiar face. You're that Dobi Naruto, the dead last of our class. He yelled out before angrily growling upon realizing the cause for his eldest sister's current state. I thought you were dead, you bastard. Now I'm going to make you wish you were. He yells out furiously, struggling and kicking while trying to get out of the chains so he can kill him for having his way with his sister. Just you wait, because as soon as I'm out of these chains, you won't be alive for long, you bastard. He declared angrily as everyone in the room just sweat dropped watching as he tries and failed to break free from the chains until Sum walked next to him and hits him on the head to shut him up. Hey now, I gave Hana a choice of what to do with her heat cycle. Naruto said while holding up his hand defensively before a pleasant grin appeared on his face. But in the end of it she agreed that we should, and now we've become mates since she's probably carrying my children. He added, speaking the truth as he remembers all that he had with both Hana and Hitomi the past few days since he's positive that the Hyuga MILF may also be pregnant with his child. While the mother and daughter thought over his words of them becoming possible grandmother and aunt, the son was livid. Bullshit. I bet the real truth is that you raped her. He accused, snarling as he once again tries get free, which caused the blonde to shake his head sadly. Cammy, things just never seems to change since I'm still being called a liar, whether I'm human or a demon. He solemnly said, since it'd been 6 years and things still haven't changed. Hearing what he said, Sum turned her attention towards her friend's son as she gave him a questioning look. Demon. What do you mean, Naruto, since you are not a demon? She explained since she has no problem with Naruto and Hana becoming mates since her daughter needed a real man as well, a strong alpha to father her children, which he clearly is, even though she thought he died that night along with everyone else. Giving her a sheepish look, the Uzumaki decided to explain the situation he's been dealing with. Yeah, about that, Ms. Sum. On that night when Mizuki tricked and attacked me to get the Forbidden Scroll, he cut off both of my arms, and while I was dying, I was given an offer to either become a demon, or die. He explained while walking up to Hana, putting a tender hand to her cheek as well gently rub her swollen belly as Inuki watched with slight jealousy as she remembers him telling her about it earlier. I took the offer, and when I first became a demon, I gave into my bloodlust and killed 2 people, as the first was on purpose but the second was someone I never wanted to kill. He continued solemnly with a face of sorrow while his latest lover nuzzled against his hand, causing a small smile to grace his lips. That night I became what a lot of people had always called me, so I have been living in the forest of death ever since for the past 6 years now. He finished, causing the 2 Inuzuka women to gasp as Kiba is just getting the pieces together as he horribly realized